Today is Thursday, June the 1st. We are reading Romans chapter 13 together. This is a chapter I think that when we get to as believers, especially American Christians, in the book of Romans, it's a chapter we don't really like to talk about. Because the reoccurring themes are how do you handle your government authorities? How do you handle your money? And how do you handle the future? Three things that we really like to be in control of, right? We like to be in control as Americans of our government, telling what to do because we're in democracy. We like to be in control of our money. We like to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it. And lastly, we like to be in control of the future. That's what we long for. We like to be able to plan out and be able to know what's coming, and so we can have plans for things, so we can react to things the way we want to react to it. And Paul kind of lights into us. Well, really, he was going in at it with the people then. He says things like this: when we share our highlights together, before I go any further, I'm curious to know what you highlighted in this, okay? So make sure you leave your comments in the comment section below. Verse 1, though, says this: let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. And then in verse 2, he says, consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. Paul does this thing. He's talking to the Romans who are living in Rome under a Roman emperor and saying, hey, as Christians, I know you may not like how you're being treated by your government, but you should still serve and love the government. Now, it doesn't mean you have to rubber stamp everything that they do, but you need to honor them. You need to serve them in the hope that they come into an understanding of God and who He is. And I know, again, as an American Christian, I'm going to talk about this for a second. I think we have a habit to get really frustrated. Some of us like our president. We don't like our president. Some of us like our senators, so we don't like our senators. We don't like our House of Representatives, or we do like it. We like our governor, or we don't like it. Or mayor. You can fill in the blank with a government institution, and you can get either people who are like, they're doing a great job, or people who say they're doing a terrible job, and we have a tendency to speak badly against these people, or have a tendency to be blind to what these people are doing, instead of recognizing our positions as Christians is to recognize, first and foremost, we are subject to God. He is our King. We belong to His kingdom, first and foremost, and whatever He tells us to do, we do. Secondly, because we are subject to God, and He says, I place these governments over you to take care of you. Sometimes people do better than others, but you are to honor them. You are to love them with the hope and praying that they follow Jesus, right? And if they don't, maybe they'll become followers of Jesus because of how you live, how you prayed for them. And now you may be thinking, they just don't understand it. Paul is writing to the Roman Christians, they had an emperor, but they don't get what we're living through. Well, he does, actually worse than we do. During this time, and I've said this already this week, but I just want you to understand, because I think sometimes we play this game with history, where we say we have it worse than they did, and we really don't. If you're an American Christian, you really do not compared to what Paul did. Paul and the church in Rome had so much worse than we did. They were under Emperor Claudius, and he had kicked out, I talked about this, he kicked out the Jewish Christians and the Jews out of Rome. Basically, he went through and said, if you were Jewish by heritage, like the Jewish Christians, or you're Jewish by religion, you have no place here anymore. And he kicked them out. He literally just walked through and kicked them out of their homes. They were on the streets, they were outside the city, and that happened for 5 years. They were wanderers with no home until he finally let them back in. Well, under the next emperor, Nero would hate the Christians and Jewish people so much that, especially the Christians, that it talks about that he used to dress them up as wild animals, throw them in arenas for dogs to tear apart, for people to kill. He would take Christians and hang them from trees and light them on fire while they were alive to light his garden at night. That is how these people treated Christians. And Paul is writing to that context and saying, we still love and we honor and we submit to the ruling authorities. And if they can do it, so can we. We do not have it as bad as they did. You may not like what we're living under, but it's nowhere near the level of craziness that the early church had experienced. And yet, by how they loved each other, took care of the city around them, and honored the people in authority above them, 300 years later, the majority of the Roman Empire was Christian. Their lives and submission to God changed everything. He talks about how you're to live debt-free. That's the only debt you should have is your love towards one another. We continue to take care of one another. And it's so that you can live freely for the kingdom of God. You can do what God's called you to do. And lastly, that we're supposed to live for eternity. We don't live thinking, building a life for ourselves now. We live with the day of heaven in mind. So that's going on in these passages. Again, I would love to hear what did you read? What did you get out of this? And let's dialogue about this and how we can follow God together. What I learned in this passage is that God is in control of all things. Sometimes we don't think he is, but he always is. He's the one who establishes governments. He establishes kingdoms. Nations rise and fall, but the kingdom of God stands forever. He's above all things. What I learned about people is that sometimes we forget to live like God's in charge. Sometimes we begin to live and think that God isn't in charge. And I know we don't believe that, but that's how we act. That's how we talk sometimes. But we need to remind ourselves that God's in charge. And things may not go the way that we think they should, but God is always in control. He always has a plan, and his will always win out in the end. So what's the next step I can take? I can look at how I view our government, my money, and my time in the future. I can look at it and say, am I living in submission to God as my king, God as the creator, God the one in control, and trusting him? Or am I freaking out and rebelling against things? I can't make that choice for you. I can't even walk through that. You have to wrestle through that. But maybe that's a choice you need to think through. Maybe it's the next step you need to think about. Let's read these 14 verses together. It's a tiny chapter, but it's chock full of stuff, isn't it? Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authorities, rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you'll be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also as a matter of conscience. This is why you pay taxes, for the authorities are God's servants, who give their full time to governing. Give to everyone what you owe them. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves has fulfilled the law. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other command there may be are summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. And do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is nearly over, the day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us behave decently, as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual morality or debauchery, not in dissension and jealousy. Rather, clothe yourself with the Lord Jesus Christ, and do not think about how to gratify the desires of the flesh. Let's pray. Father, may we live our lives in such a way that fulfills your law, to love one another as you've loved us. Father, may we live our lives in such a way that the people around us, our neighbors, our co-workers, our family, our government, sees you and work in us and desires to follow you too. Help us to be a people of honor. Help us to lead the way in generosity and love, and help us to point people to Jesus in all that we say and do. Amen. Church, until we see each other tomorrow, you are sent. Have a great day.